Hey upcoming legends, welcome to the esoteric sim racing channel where for once we're going to talk about the bare basics. Getting into sim racing can be a daunting prospect. I know, because not too many years ago I was faced with the same challenges as you. Where do you begin? Will a controller be enough, or do you get an entry-level steering wheel? Which brand? Which simulator is best to get started with? So on and so forth. Join us in this new series as we break down the main components of getting into sim racing and quickly becoming an effective driver. We'll go over everything from getting you started through to quickly putting together competitive laps. Be sure to hit subscribe in order to stay up to date with the future parts of the series, where we'll be going over the ideal peripherals as well as driving and car setup fundamentals. Today we'll be talking about the first part of your sim racing journey, the actual simulator itself. You'll want to begin by asking yourself, which aspect of motorsport do I like most? If you're into rally driving or oval racing, then your selections are going to be fairly limited. If, however, you're going into Formula 1, GT3, road cars, or some kind of esoteric track day machines, then you're going to have a few options ahead of you. Assetto Corsa. The first simulator that most newcomers start on these days, with the exception of Gran Turismo Sport, is Assetto Corsa. Assetto Corsa hits a great middle ground between convincing driving models, accurate tracks, a large swath of content, and overall accessibility. Being available on all major platforms, it's no accident that the majority of the revered Jimmy Broadbent's content took place in this simulator. On any given day, you can just about load any track and car combination and start having fun. Assetto Corsa has also been heavily modded over the years, with things such as a launcher that bypasses its awkward menu and various audio-visual tweaks to make it look and sound truly next-gen. To this day, it's still one of the nicest looking sims on the market. Project Cars 2. If you don't mind a bit of quirkiness in car handling and more of an immersive experience versus a realistic one, Project Cars 2 still makes for a compelling sim. Though it's closer to what we would term simcade rather than being a true simulator, the madness engine that P-Cars 2 is built on is a tremendously capable bit of kit. Simulating all manner of things such as tyre deformation, flat spotting, altitude and weather effects on performance, it's more than capable of being a true simulator. Unfortunately, due to slightly mad studios biting off more than they could chew with the sheer volume of content in this game and the multi-disciplined forms of racing, none of it was as fleshed out as it should have been. That said, if you find Project Cars 2 as part of a summer sale and can pick it up for a bargain, it'll certainly keep you entertained until you start to yearn for something a little closer to life. F1 2019. If you delved into the sim racing scene based on the recent virtual F1 events, odds are it's F1 2019 which brought you here. F1 2019 is a very immersive looking game which holds the license to official FIA Formula 1 content. Despite looking the part, F1 2019 can unfortunately barely be called a simulator and is in fact closer to an arcade game. The car setup adjustments don't behave as you would expect, and the driver inputs don't exactly correlate with what you would be doing in real life. Consequently, some F1 drivers have refused to take part in these events on grounds that it holds too little relevance to the real-life motorsport. That aside, F1 2019 is a fun and engaging game if you're not too serious about your racing mirroring real life, and can be enjoyed casually with a controller to boot. iRacing. If you got into sim racing due to the recent wave of motorsports turned esports events, odds are it happened through iRacing. Without a doubt containing the most complete and curated online ecosystem, iRacing is the platform of choice for those who want to race others online. Containing licenses, safety ratings and a subscription model, iRacing tends to be for the more serious crowd. Speaking of subscription model, that neatly leads us into iRacing's biggest caveat. Widely criticized for having a toxic monetization model, in iRacing you're looking to pay a monthly subscription for basic content and quite a hefty premium per car and track you want to unlock. You could argue that this adds to its realism, as real-life motorsport is also very expensive, In any case, you'll likely want to bring your wallet along for this one. P.S. iRacing contains one of the most complete ecosystems for oval racing, so if you're into Indy cars or NASCAR, then this may be your first port of call. Gran Turismo Sport. Available exclusively to PlayStation owners, it's difficult to recommend GT Sport to those who are looking to build towards a true realistic simulator experience. Not only is the peripheral ecosystem on the PlayStation grossly limited because of Sony's costly licensing, GT Sport simply doesn't simulate enough aspects of physics to be considered a true driving sim. If you have a PlayStation and are looking for some quick online games and something you can comfortably play on the controller without getting too overwhelmed, then this could be one to keep an eye on. As an added benefit, Gran Turismo Sport is one of the best looking simulators on the market, with a gorgeous lighting system and a photo mode which looks truly spectacular. Dirt Rally 2.0. If you're a rally driving enthusiast, as your handsome narrator is, you're not exactly spoiled for choice when it comes to simulators. By many, the old Richard Burns Rally is still considered the grandfather of realism, even though it came out 16 years ago. This gives you a reasonable picture of the rally simulator landscape. Nearly 5 years ago, the industry got a breath of fresh air with the sudden and unannounced release of Codemasters Dirt Rally. Bringing rally driving firmly into the new generation, Dirt Rally gave longtime fans what they desperately wanted: a chance to go sideways in mid-air over finished backroads. Foregoing the disastrous Dirt 4, skipping ahead to 2019, Codemasters released the long-awaited sequel, Dirt Rally 2.0, featuring improvements such as track degradation and marginally improved handling physics. As with most things, Dirt Rally comes with its drawbacks. Being a Codemasters title, it could be considered simcade at best, with very questionable asphalt physics and a very forgiving driving model overall. If you're into rally, your choices basically boil down to either this or WRC8. Also a simcade title. The advantage to all of this is that both games are quite easy to pick up and play with a controller, so choose your poison and drink up. Assetto Corsa Competizione. Coming out in 2018, ACC was the first game to deep dive solely into the world of GT3 racing, securing the Blancpain GT license and aiming to recreate that series for the 2018 and 2019 years respectively. Featuring all the cars, teams and drivers featured in that series, ACC quickly became many sim racers' go-to simulator for GT racing. Built on Unreal Engine 4, it looks stellar with great detail on both tracks and cars. The sounds, alongside Dirt Rally, are industry leading. The online ecosystem is robust and it has one of the best wet weather simulations on the market. The caveat is that, of course, if you have no interest in GT3 racing, then this game doesn't hold anything else. Further, if you've followed this channel in the past, you'll know that some of us don't entirely gel with its handling model, as the cars feel decidedly less communicative and engaging than some other sims on this list. rFactor 2. Saving the best for last, rFactor 2 is the grandfather of realistic racing simulators. It's the platform you go to when you want to have the backing of F1 drivers like Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Despite being several years old, it's still the closest you can get to real driving on a consumer platform. Being based on a similar physics framework as rFactor Pro, which is used to train real-life GT and Formula drivers, this is the industry standard for physics rendering in a racing simulator. What's the catch? Well, all this comes at a large cost. The rFactor 2 ecosystem could be called scattered at best. It contains hodgepodge content made by various different companies over the span of 7 years. Much of the vanilla content the game ships with is heavily outdated and quite spotty in its quality. Since the sim was handed off to Studio 397, they've begun a slew of development to modernize the game, both in terms of presentation and usability, as well as consolidating the content with various car and track packs, including some industry-leading developments like their laser scanning of Sebring and the Nürburgring. Despite its complex physics rendering and tire model, which is more art than science, rFactor 2 has little to recommend it to a beginner. It's difficult to get into, The good content is locked behind additional paywalls, the graphics and sounds are outdated, there are long-standing issues the developers refuse to address, the casual online ecosystem is virtually non-existent, the AI needs work. You can see where we're going with this. rFactor 2 is for the true racing purists who are willing to suffer for having the best driving experience available. Honorable mentions: Automobilista 2. Automobilista 2 is an upcoming racing game developed by Reza Studios, who both curated Automobilista 1 for many years and have a solid relationship with the developers of rFactor 2, having released third-party content for that title over the years. While it's difficult to recommend an in-development title to a complete sim racing newcomer, AMS2 is looking like it's going to shape up into one of the 4 running racing simulation games of the new generation. Built on the Madness engine of Project Cars 2 fame, this is the first time we're seeing the potential of the engine tested by a true simulator. Automobilista 1 was regarded as having some of the best force feedback in the industry, and AMS2 is already no slouch in this area. Ever since pre-release, it quickly became regarded as second only to the industry-leading force feedback of rFactor 2. Featuring a slew of esoteric and varied content from obscure Brazilian stock cars to purpose-built track day machines and various open-wheelers, AMS2 is one to keep an eye on over the coming years. Honorable mentions: Raceroom Racing Experience. Raceroom Racing Experience is a sim that's labelled as free to play on the Steam store. While this is its title card, you'll quickly realise that going in without spending anything only gives you access to some baseline content, with a monetization model reminiscent of iRacing if you actually want to purchase additional tracks and cars. The game uses its own in-game currency and has very aggressive pricing if you don't capitalise on sales. While the game featured some of the best sim racing sounds prior to the advent of Assetto Corsa Competizione, it lacks heavily in other departments, featuring no day-night cycle or weather effects. The driving itself has little to set it apart from other sim racing games on the market. With all these factored in, Raceroom has little to recommend it to a new sim racer. Honorable mentions: BeamNG. While not a racing simulator per se, BeamNG is currently the consumer market's most advanced soft-body vehicle simulator. That is to say, it has amazing crashes. Given the game's perpetual early access nature and quirky, arcade-like presentation, most people mistake what BeamNG is capable of. Behind the pizza delivery missions and slow-motion crashes underlies a tremendously capable physics simulator. In fact, it could be the very best overall car physics simulator on the market. The nature of the game modeling car components as soft, deformable objects means certain elements such as chassis flex are intrinsically modeled. It also contains a very impressive tire model which rivals that of rFactor 2. As expected, this all results in very natural, informative force feedback. You can easily tell whether you're driving a lumbering, road-going beast from the 70s or a hyper-modified modern track day machine. BeamNG doesn't need to can its physics effects because its physics framework is so universal that simply driving a car with such differing characteristics will immediately become evident through the virtual steering column. Again, BeamNG is a difficult game to recommend to a complete beginner, but if you have some extra cash lying around and want to witness what the future of sim racing may look like, don't give this one a miss. If this engine ever becomes licensed for real racing games, it will become nigh unstoppable, and we'll never be able to go back to the days where we tolerated our virtual cars bouncing off barriers with no damage like their micro machines. P.S. If you're willing to stretch the definition of what a rally game is, BeamNG technically becomes the most realistic rally simulator on the market. Well, that wraps up our racing simulator primer. Hopefully now you have a better idea of which game is just right for you to start your sim racing journey. Be sure to subscribe and join us next time as we delve into the wide world of sim racing peripherals. Until then, take it easy.